Hey guys, Corey here. Welcome to Blue Talks, and I hope you enjoy this video.
He staggers down the hallway, his head hanging down, his mouth slack, his arms like this, staggering from one side to the next, and he groans in pain. I hurry, I rush to him, but he's too heavy for me to hold. Our oldest daughter, thank God she was there, runs over and grabs the other side, and we maneuver him to a chair, and he lands with a whoop. Something is terribly wrong. He slumps into the chair, his eyes dark, unfocused. His hands are trembling. Did the stroke check? Nothing. Then I smell something burning and I turn to rescue our supper. It wasn't always like this. So here we are today at Heart House, where I spent 17 years, many decades ago, as a graduate student. So here we are today at Heart House, University of Toronto, for a Blue Talk event. I'm really grateful to Corey and his team for their support, but I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are gathered today on the traditional lands of the Huron, Wendat, the Seneca, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. This land continues to be home to many Indigenous peoples from across Turtle Island, and I'm so grateful to be here among you today. So I'm going to tell you who I am. Aside from that lovely introduction that I had, was really embarrassing. But I'm here as a woman who has loved fiercely and is grieving deeply as the person she loves slips away. But I'm also here to share that I've learned something quite unexpected from that experience. Living in the moment can become a superpower. Even in loss, there's light, there's resilience, there's wisdom. Remember, Leonard Cohen shared that with us. He said, there is a crack in everything. That's where the light gets in. So we first met 48 years ago here at the University of Toronto. It was, I would say, memorable. I was standing in the hallway conferring with other graduate students about a lab we were trying to design. And our supervisor came walking down the hallway with this guy. And she explained to us that he just returned from the Kalahari Desert in Botswana on a Smithsonian-funded expedition to the Okavango Swamp, for any of you who are familiar with that area. And it was khaki shirts, khaki shorts, hiking boots, muscular, tanned. Did I mention that he was muscular and tanned? Oh, okay, you got that part. Okay. And a lock of black hair fell over his forehead. Not that I was paying much attention. He gave me the glad eye. And how many people know what that means? You know, when you meet someone of usually the opposite gender, and they start at the bottom and work their way up and then back down again? Haha, the glad eye. I was not impressed. Then our supervisor, she was all over him physically, told me to hand him my lab key because he was going to now be occupying the space that I use to keep my stuff and to do my work. He smiled. That sealed it. I was even more annoyed. Several weeks later, I was toiling away in one of these musty university libraries, just overwhelmed by the many deadlines that I had looming over me. And it came up to me and asked if I had an extra pencil. I did. He said he'd return it. He did. And with an offer of coffee. That coffee turned into a date, turned into, well, let's just put it this way, he rarely went home again. Don't tell my mother that part. We married 4 months later. We had many adventures together. We were real outdoor guy, right? So we did, we hiked, we camped, we canoed, we rock climbed, we skied. We did the whole thing. And he told me stories all the time. Stories about being a young man going into Nigeria at the end of the Biafran War for 2 years. About his adventures in Botswana and South Africa and other parts of the African continent. About being stalked by a hyena along the Namibian-Botswana border, up by the Okavango Swamp, up in the northwest corner where nobody lives. The hyena is stalking him. Night is falling as it falls so quickly in the tropics. Camp is too far away. He's heaving rocks at it, and this thing is getting closer and closer. So he climbed a stile over into Namibia, which was not a good thing to do at the time. I'll explain why in a moment. And he got picked up by the Namibian Border Patrol. Now, fortunately, he had a box of beer at the camp. So when they said, I'll give you a box of beer if we get to the camp. So they took him down to the camp. He climbed over the stile, got the beer, gave it to them. Did I mention there was a war going on at that time? Yeah, never dull. 3 years later, we had our first child. And 4 years after that, our second. We were as poor as church mice. We didn't even have a pot. We were still graduate students, but this time working on our doctoral degrees. But we were happy. And despite the challenges of weathering our daughter's severe asthma and repeated hospitalizations, we made it through every challenge that life threw at us. Miraculously, I guess. He made me feel safe. He made me feel that we could meet any challenge together. His decline began 8 years ago when he collapsed in church. I was about to debut my first solo as a second largest handbell operator. I never got a note out. Ambulance, prolonged hospital stay. This became the pattern of the years that followed. Subtle shifts began. There were little things at first. He'd open the cupboard, stare at the shelves, unsure where to put the dishes, something he had been a habit for all of his life. He'd hold a smartphone and say, "How do I check my insulin again?" for about the 5th time that day. He'd ask several times, "What day is it?" Or, "What are we supposed to be doing today?" And every time he realized he'd forgotten, you see, this brief cloud would pass over his face, a mixture of embarrassment and something far deeper, something like fear. Then the larger gaps started happening, repeating stories, starting a sentence, using the wrong word, asking a question, not understanding the answer. I found myself trying to smooth over the awkward moments, protecting him from the truth that was really hurting him. Caregivers learn quickly. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is to protect someone from the awareness of their own decline. There were bright days. There were where he was almost sharp, almost funny, nearly himself. That's the cruelty of dementia. Flashes of the person you love, only to take them away again. And you begin to wonder, how much do I hold on to? How much do I let go? How do you live inside a moving target of identity? Now, the gerontologist, thank God, is very direct. Says, it's progressive, it's incurable, he will get worse. And over the past year, he has. There's more confusion, more frustration, more loss of independence. But the hardest part? The hardest part is the uncertainty, that question mark that hangs over every tomorrow. How fast will it progress? What will tomorrow look like? And how do you prepare for a goodbye that takes years? Pauline Voss talked about ambiguous loss. It's grief without closure. When someone dies, there's a before and after. There are rituals. There's community. There's recognition of a life lived. But ambiguous loss is a grief without witnesses except for those who are close. There's no funeral for the pieces of a person that disappear slowly. There's no obituary for memory or competence that is lost, or for the thousands small capacities that fall away in, as Rosala Leslie says, in small slices, slow slices. Frustration, bone-deep fatigue, resentment, despair, punctuated by moments of joy to become like lifelines. And so we grieve alone, silently, even as we care fiercely, day after day. Anne Campanella cared for her mother who had Alzheimer's. And she talks about the fact that there is a constant tension when you're the caregiver of a person with dementia between love and duty and exhaustion. That's not just physical exhaustion. That's psychological and emotional exhaustion. Now, caregiving is often described as heroic, but most caregivers will tell you it doesn't feel heroic at all. It just feels like showing up day after day, even when you haven't slept, even when your heart is breaking, even when you really want to run away. Even when you wish, just once, that someone would take care of you. And yet caregiving reveals things you might never have discovered otherwise. A gentleness you didn't know you had. An impatience you wished you didn't. A humor that carries you through the darkest moments. You only need one book, right? You only need one movie. A tenderness, almost sacred, that exists only between two people who've walked through fire together. My saving grace has been learning to live in the moment. To step out of my left thinking brain, that logical planning part, into my right thinking brain, the part that feels, that experiences joy, and is in the present moment. Precious. I wish I could say there was a moment when he looked at me and said, with complete sincerity, "Thank you." But I realize that's not going to happen. He gets angry at what he knows is slipping away. His strength, his mind, his beingness. He slips into conspiracy theories and that I'm trying to make him look stupid in front of the medical team. Those times are tough to take. However, although we often talk about dementia as a story of loss, within that loss lie pockets of profound love. Love that becomes simpler, becomes pure, almost childlike. I understand that I'm not just losing someone, I'm rediscovering the depth of who we were together. Now, I describe this. Sometimes it feels like I'm living in two dimensions. One holds grief, daily reminders that dementia is progressing, and the other holds presence, the commitment to make each day count. Now, you may be familiar with the writings of Dina Veronelli Betty. She wrote, "Grief is the final act of love." It should come as no surprise that when we love deeply, our grief reflects that depth. But that's not all. I'm going to refer you to Joan Didion, who wrote about her husband who passed away very quickly, and she wrote profoundly about that. She says, when we mourn the person we loved, the selves we once were, as we are now, as we will one day no longer be. With dementia, you begin the mourning long before they're actually gone. Now, here's what I believe. I believe, you may not agree with this, that's your privilege, but I've come to believe is a universal truth. Grief touches us all, every single one of us. But so does love. Even though to care for someone who is slowly disappearing feels like living inside a profound contradiction, yet I choose the present. I choose to cherish what remains. I choose gratitude over despair, love over fear, and meaning over certainty. I'd like to invite you all to reflect on your own relationships, on the power of presence as a form of love, on the small, imperfect, fleeting moments that give our lives meaning, the beauty of now. Thank you.